All right, the third myth is that, and this one I believe is deliberately propagated, mainly by the Department of Homeland Security, is that the NBAF facility is going to replace Plum Island. And so the notion that's generated is that it's sort of a one-off, it's kind of a zero-sum game. We're gonna get rid of one lab and then we're going to build another. And perhaps the perspective is a little bit different than Athens because they're going to be potentially building this lab here. But from a national perspective, you think, okay, well, maybe we're just sort of doing a trade-off here, so it's not an expansion of this kind of facility. That's not true. In some senses, NBAF will replace Plum Island in that it will assume some of the research agenda at Plum Island. But Plum Island is not sinking into the Atlantic anytime soon. This is the facility in New York in the Long Island Sound. In fact, that facility is being upgraded with $30 million right now, and they're building 10,000 new square feet of lab space. So when a site is selected for NBAF, and NBAF is built, Plum Island is not going to disappear. So we're not going to sort of lose one but gain another. In fact, we're going to get two labs doing this. The big difference, though, is that NBAF will have this very large BSL-4 space. And for years, the Department of Agriculture and then the Department of Homeland Security tried to build the level 4 space at Plum Island. And basically, the people on Long Island again and again defeated that proposal because they didn't want it, because the lab at Plum Island does not have an enviable safety record. The fourth myth, I think we're most of the way through them now. This is one that I could talk about all night because it's something that I spend a huge amount of my time working on, but I'll be relatively brief. The fourth myth is that facilities like NBAF are really tightly regulated by the federal government, and the feds are going to be there to prevent any accidents and to prevent any acts of domestic terrorism coming out of them. Well, I can tell you that I have spent more time than virtually any other human being on the planet, probably than any other human being on the planet, looking at questions of safety at these facilities and the functioning of the safety programs of high containment, the level 3 and level 4 facilities over the past few years. And it is not a pretty picture. The truth of the matter is that there are no comprehensive federal accident reporting requirements. And so sometimes you'll hear a proponent of a lab will get up and say, well, but we've looked at the scientific literature and we've looked at the report records and, we really don't see a lot of accident reports. Well, guess what? There haven't been any comprehensive reporting requirements. There still aren't in the United States. And if you report an accident under the current system, all you're probably doing is putting your funding in peril. So it's no wonder that in the formal scientific literature, there's not a lot of reports of accidents. Well, it's because there has been no reason for labs to do so in many circumstances, and there still isn't. So the federal government is going to be there to protect us. For years, people in my position have been saying the federal government doesn't even know where all the labs are. And this isn't just me and other people saying this anymore. Actually, the Government Accountability Office looked at this question very recently. And they interviewed the heads of the various government agencies that have a bit here or a bit there to do with these high containment facilities, and they concluded exactly the same thing. The government does not know where all of these facilities are. I don't know how you could effectively regulate the facilities if you don't even know where they are. But the claim is still made that they are effectively regulated. Another claim that you'll hear is that the Institutional Biosafety Committee will take care of things. This is a system of you have researchers from the facility and a few others, sometimes people from the community, generally not, who review projects and oversee safety at these facilities. I've looked at these facilities very, very intensely a couple of times, done a couple of national surveys in 2004 and in 2006. I found that there are a few committees that work pretty well, but by and large, the national state of these committees is very, very poor. I'll tell you why. They're not legally required. The requirement is through contract. When you accept federal money for certain types of research, you sign a piece of paper that says that you will run this committee and that you will follow these federal guidelines. Well, the guidelines have existed for almost 30 years now. It has been made public on many, many occasions that this university or that institute did not follow the guidelines. Guess how many times the federal government has penalized an institution for not following the biosafety committee rules? None. It's never happened. And for the past few years, I have documented violations of these rules. I have gone to the National Institutes of Health, which is in charge of them. I have said, here it is in black and white. Here are experts that you can talk to in this particular agent. This is unquestionably a violation of these guidelines for these safety committees that this institution is allegedly required to do. Now do something. And the institutions are never penalized. It still hasn't happened. And the final bit that you'll hear is that well, the federal government now is going to regulate these labs through what's called the select agent rule. And it's true that the select agent rule, select agent is just the bureaucratic government word for biological weapons agent. If you hear somebody say select agent, it means the same thing as biological weapons agent. The main criteria for being described, for being termed a select agent by the federal government is past use in a biological weapons program. But you'll hear that the select agent rule, which is run out by CDC out of Atlanta, and in some cases by APHIS, the Animal Plant Health and Inspection Service in Beltsville, Maryland, is going to enforce this rule, and that'll keep these labs safe. Well, I've had quite an issue with Texas A&M and College Station over the last year, where using the Texas Public Information Act, I discovered that the university had a series of accidents that and test results that were reportable not only by contract, not only by federal guideline, but there was CFR, there was federal code there that said that they had to report these accidents. And I got emails that said, hey, we have to report this, and they didn't do it. It wasn't until my organization did a press release that the Centers for Disease Control found out what had happened at Texas A&M. And even while one of the researchers at Texas A&M who became ill was ill and out of work, at home sick, Texas A&M CDC inspected the facility and didn't find any major problems. Well, after about 3,000 pages of documentation came out of Texas A&M under the Texas Public Information Act, and because I had a district attorney in Brazos County, Texas, who was willing to enforce the law, which was really important, CDC went back and found a couple of dozen major violations of the select agent rule and shut the program down at Texas A&M. They would have been one of the other labs that would be in the running for NBAF at this point if it wasn't for that. But the key point is that it was again based on self-reporting by the facility of the problems, and they chose, even when the force of federal law was there, they chose not to do it. So there are deep flaws in federal oversight of these facilities.